I don't have a new look today.
Yeah, it's a little different, man.
I mean, it's a little bit different every day.
What's different? What's different about how I look today?
And you had glasses with backwards hat last time. Before that, no glasses, backwards hat. Now it's more of a full beard. You've had a shaven beard with the mustache fully grown in. I don't know. I like it. Don't be worried about it.
But man of many looks, you know? That way nobody can recognize me on the streets. They're like, is that him? It might be him. I'm not sure. You know, man of many looks.
He's the master of disguise.
How's everybody's weekend? Evan, how's Cali?
Cali was fun. The weather was great. It was nice to get away from the 110-degree weather in Las Vegas. And so I was just celebrating a coworker's birthday, chilling on the beach, drinking some White Claws, and also chilling on the Santa Monica Pier too. And it was really nice to get away for that. So it was good. And how about you?
Good. I had a bachelor party and I got all sorts of messed up, but all in fun ways, man. It's good to be back in the normal things. I'm actually I've been working out, right? I haven't been working out heavy the last 2 weeks, but I've gone every day the last 2 weeks just to kind of get my body ready for starting tomorrow, doing a 90-day workout program. 90 days. Yes. It's intense. It's supposed to, help build some muscle on this scrawny ass body of mine. So we'll
talk about a new look.
Yeah, there's a new look.
Yes, speaking of new looks, I'm gonna have a new one in 90 days. You ever seen Fairly Odd Parents?
Yes. Staple.
Remember that episode when Cosmo was like ripped in 90 seconds? And so they had Wanda and Cosmo and Timmy were on some adventure. And Cosmo dips from the scene. He goes, "I'll be right back." And then it cuts over to Cosmo just working out aggressively for like 90 seconds, but it's not a 90-second clip. And he comes back to the previous scene, all buff and jacked and whatnot. I'm like, shit, man, if that stuff was real, how tight would that be? If you could get ripped in 90 seconds, I'd be all for it. Maybe there's like some HGH stuff in there, some steroids, you got to do what you got to do.
The life would be life would be very different. And people would take a way different perspective on their physical health.
They could switch it up pretty quick.
Yeah, exactly. But Mariner fans, welcome to another edition of Monday Mojo. We're coming at you Sunday, 8:15. Mariners went 4-2 on the week. And we're coming at you actually on the anniversary of the very last perfect game thrown in MLB history. Am I right? Yeah, no perfect game has been thrown since Felix Hernandez against the Rays. How many years ago?
9.
9 years ago? Yeah, 9 years ago. Today we have a great episode. We have a guest on the show. His name is Jason A. Churchill. He's the founder of Prospect Insider and executive copy editor at Data Scribe. We'll get into what he does in just a few moments. But how do we feel about the week, you guys?
Good. It's a great bounce back week. I mean, we lost the first against the Rangers with Logan Gilbert on the mound. And that was just kind of like, oh,
that was scary.
Man. Yeah. That was scary because that was our third loss in a row to the Rangers. And it's like the M's, man, they play good teams and they end up playing to their level, it seems like, for the majority of the season. And we end up playing well against those guys. And then if we play a bad team, such as the Rockies or the Rangers, we lose the games or the series. And
the Tigers.
What's that, wife?
Well, the Tigers is a whole different story.
Yeah, we're 1-5 against the Tigers.
Good Lord.
Jesus. Yeah, so it's like we play down to levels.
6-1 against the Rays too. So I mean, it's vice versa as you're talking about. But yeah, this week it was real nice to bounce back and get 4 in a row right in the middle there. We end up taking the series from the Rangers, and then winning the first 2 against the Blue Jays to give ourselves a chance for the sweep today. Unfortunately, Logan just didn't have it. But I mean, the story of the year has been the bullpen, and what I kind of saw materializing over the last couple weeks is that our starting pitching has just been they want a piece of that action too. They're just as part of the story as the bullpen is now. Every day you come out, you're getting a pretty good start. I mean, Logan scuffled today, but over the last, since we got Tyler Anderson and that bullpen day has been eliminated, you can pretty much count on these guys to come out and give you a quality start, and then we can get it into the bullpen's hands and keep the score low.
What I want to see more of moving forward, right? Like whether or not we see ourselves in playoff position these days, we're still not out of it, definitely, and I want everyone to be mindful of that. But the percentages have been dropping. But at the very least, I want to see more of God. What was it? Saturday when we won 9-3 last night?
Last night, yeah. I
want more of those innings in which we just kind of blow it open. Because if we look at the scores over the past week, for the most part, they're just these just one run wins that somehow edge into our favor, and that's been the story for the majority of the season. But it's one of those things where if we don't see more blowout wins, and just the folks in the lineup just building off of each other, if we don't see that, it's just concerning. And all the big ball clubs out there find themselves having these days where, they build off of a home run, right? Just because they hit a home run, bases clearing, they, two, three more guys will get on, and then it's kind of an assembly line, so to speak. So
up until that game on Saturday, there were 10 games in a row for the Seattle Mariners where the game was decided by 2 or less runs. And so, right. I mean, but as any Mariners fan knows, and anybody who's been looking at the Mariners even somewhat remotely close this year, the Mariners are just in those types of games. And that's the way we're playing baseball this year, which for a fan's perspective, I mean, it's just an emotional roller coaster. We don't know what the hell is going to go on, and we're going to get walk-offs, and we're going to lose in those close inning games sometimes. But I hear what you're saying, man. It's like, I want to see those blowouts. I want it. But
one viewpoint that I think will resonate or ring true to what we're talking about here, Jason Churchill, hell of a guy that puts out some great content on the Mariners pretty much exclusively. He has many thoughts on where we're headed, how we've done, and I think you guys will love to give him a listen. So again, Jason A. Churchill, founder of Prospect Insider, copy editor at DataScribe. Give him a listen.
Appreciate you hopping on, man.
Cool.
How's
no problem.
How's the day treat you so far?
Much better than yesterday. Yeah, sorry again about yesterday. That was crazy. That happens about once every year and a half, and it just so happened to be yesterday. It was nuts. So
what went down? Were you just watching the Mariner game, or what's up?
No, some day job stuff came up. We do essentially we're a tech company, but we deliver content to publishers like the AP and MGM and things like that. And yesterday chose the day to send us a bunch of alerts and say, holy shit, nothing's working. So we had kind of an all hands on deck trying to fix it, and it took the majority of the day to
fire drills.
And it is literally, when that happens, it is literally all 25 people in the company, including the CEO, off his only vacation he's taken in 5 years since he's been here, talking to people, trying to make sure that it works. We're all in this, team hangout on Google Meets, and, hey, Ben, do you have this? Hey, Church, do you have this? Hey, I'm going to do this and try this and see if this works. You check on this like constantly for about 4.5 hours. So it's pretty crazy. It's like a fire drill almost. Pretty crazy.
This is that DataScribe, right?
Yeah.
So I'm curious. I was doing a little bit of reading on that, and as you just said, you got clients like the AP, BetMGM. What exactly does DataScribe do?
We create content using data, so it looks like I wrote it, or it looks like somebody wrote it, but our technology wrote it instead. Mm-hmm. So, for example, we have the AP is a good example. We provide the AP with all of their Major League Baseball game previews. And even with AP, there's a little bit of a betting aspect to those game previews now. But we can do your straight up game previews like you've been reading, for years.
Right.
Here's who's pitching. Here's the trends. The Mariners are 61-55. That sort of thing. And then we do straight up betting previews where really nothing matters except the team props and the line and over under and shit like that. So we'll do that and deliver that to clients like BetMGM, like Catena. We have another client called Elite that we deliver MLB player props to. And it's just like, here are all the player props for Kyle Seager for this particular game. And then tomorrow we'll deliver a bunch more. So we deliver about 500,000 pieces of content a year right now. Yeah. And certain times of the year, we're delivering 30,000 in a night. Depends on like during March when we got the NBA going and we have March Madness going and we start to roll into April. And then those first few days where we have March Madness and we have all the props and the betting stuff coming from that. And then baseball has started and the NBA is still going and the NHL is still going. I mean, we're delivering 30,000 pieces. Yeah.
Are you allowed to bet on these games?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you just pull the information. You're like, I already know everything. Like most of the information is stats. Like this is to my advantage now.
Yeah, that's true. Like I'm not getting any proprietary information that isn't available to everybody, but because eventually this stuff just goes out, to everybody, when it's while it's relevant. But yeah, I ultimately at the end of the day, I'm the QA guy. I'm the editor where I see everything before it goes to the client. So I'll log into our portal and as it's being delivered, as I'm expecting it to be delivered and go, all right, there it is. We're expecting 15 MLB previews to go to the AP every night at 10:30, 11 o'clock. Right. There it is. And then I'll check out a couple of them and go, yep, that looks right. Yep, that looks right. We're good to go there. But when you do that with all the betting stuff, you do tend to memorize. Like when I look at the player props, I'm like, oh, like Kyle Seager's minus 130 to go 2 for 5 tonight. Yeah.
Well, that gets down to the weeds. I was going to ask, with all this going on, how do you find the time to, write content for Prospect Insider, right? Because that seems to be, I'm on the website right now. I've read a few, of your articles.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I was actually asked that yesterday. I was up at Everett seeing the Aqua Sox and
right here, baby.
I don't know. Yeah,
yes, sir.
Frogs.
Yes, sir.
I don't know is the best answer I have. I've gotten to the point where, I've been doing this since 2003, and I think the most important thing for me was being okay with not doing it. And right. I think I ran myself ragged for years because I didn't want to go a day without writing something, recording something, whatever it was. And, whether your day job is part of that or not, because for years, Prospect Insider was my job. That was the only job I had for a long time.
Right.
And when that's the case, it's you don't say no. But when that became too difficult to sustain, and you want to keep people in your life by having a stable income.
That's always necessary.
You're an adult, Church. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Like for a couple of years we did really, really well, but it just became really difficult to sustain it. So, went back, and that's when I took the radio gig and and then the data scribe gig. To balance that, I'm really lucky. Data scribe doesn't require a whole lot of I don't have to work 8 hours during the day necessarily. It's kind of, hey, we need this by Friday, or we have this we want to deliver by next week, or can you look at the SEO requirements for this by Tuesday or by tonight at 9 o'clock or whatever. So there's usually some flexibility and that helps. But what I do basically is I try to create the content when I have the time and energy to do it.
Yep.
And it's basically a yes or no question. Well, what is it that you want to get out right now of your brain? And do you have the time and energy to do it?
Yeah.
And if not, when are you going to have the time and energy to do it? And if it's more than 3 days out, if I'm thinking, man, I don't know that I'm going to be able to do it until Sunday, then I'm going to do it right now.
Yeah.
If I can probably do it tomorrow, then, and I'm tired and I don't really have a whole lot of time, right, then I'm just going to say no to myself and not do it. It is difficult though. And, you know, one of the reasons why I started the newsletter is because I didn't want to create Twitter threads anymore.
Yeah.
I used to go on those big rants, you know, at night.
Speaking of that,
you know?
I was seeing one the other day. This guy, I forget who it was, but he was talking about Toro and the trade with Graveman, and you were getting after him, basically letting him like get off Mariners Twitter. Like you're the worst kind of like people on Mariners Twitter. Like I love that you had clapped back at him and you're like, you just spit facts to him. And this guy's talking about just kind of stuff that's up in the air, but like kind of walk us through that.
Sometimes it just becomes too much. You know, it's like people can have opinions, but when your opinion is a conclusion about something that you actually have proven that you don't know anything about, like, what are we doing here? Right. Like that needs to be called out. And, you know, I haven't made a lot of friends with that approach on Twitter, but you know, this ain't show friends, it's show business. Right.
Yeah.
So in the end, I don't really care if you're going to be this idiot, you know, that comes to conclusions like that, including the radio people in this market. It's like Softy and Dick can't stand me now because I called them out. I called them out during a radio hit that I was doing with them about the Graveman trade. And I wasn't even blaming them. I was saying, look, if you have thousands of Twitter followers and you come to a conclusion about something pretty much immediately, those thousands of followers are going to come to the same conclusion because you did.
Right.
And that's why my response to that deal, my initial response to that deal was, boy, I'd like this deal if this were December. Mm-hmm. So there's got to be something else to this, right? And one of the reasons why I tweeted that instead of, oh my God, I love this deal, or oh my God, I hate this deal, is because I didn't know enough about Toro. Mm-hmm. I had seen him for like 6 plate appearances in the PCL 2 years ago. I just did not know enough about Toro. Yeah. But that kind of stuff angers me, man. It shouldn't get too old for that. You know, I'm 47 years old now. I've been doing this a long time. I need to find a better way to deal with it. But sometimes, you know, people just need to, and I hate saying this because it sounds condescending, but man, sometimes those people just need to be put in their place. And if you're just going to let them go spew their garbage, they're going to. Yeah. They're going to. Like that guy the other day talking about Toro and his empty singles, you know, It's a lie.
Like he hasn't only hit singles.
Right.
His first hit was a home run.
Total lie. He's been the best player on the team and like one of the top 5 players in baseball since the trade. Like, get out of here with your lies. They're literal lies. It's not even false or bullshit. It is a lie. And if somebody doesn't call people out on it, they're just going to continue to do it. So, you know, happy to do the dirty work sometimes.
Yeah. He's been worth like a one WAR, hasn't he?
He's their best player. Like I did this the other day. Like my friend, I think I tweeted this out too. My buddy Jack goes, yeah, I've come to the conclusion that if Mitch Haniger's your best player, you're probably not a good team. I'm like, yeah, you're not wrong, but here's another way to look at it. When the team acquired their best player 2 weeks ago, you probably weren't that good to start with.
Right.
He's their best player. Abraham Toro is already their best player.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And it's not just because he's on a hot streak. It's because if he puts up his season-long slash playing second base or third base, he's their best player.
So let's play GM for a little bit. Like, yeah, Toro next year, I would think that he probably stays at second. I don't think Seager's going to be back. I guess you could see him take over the third base spot, but like we've been talking about on the show, like we want to see us go after one of those big 4 shortstops that are out there, and then maybe see a guy like Trevor Story play third base for us, or maybe you go after Jose Ramirez. Like, what would you do if you were in Jerry's seat, and how would you spin this offseason?
I wouldn't touch any of the shortstops, to be honest with you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and Carlos Correa is the one that I would consider under certain circumstances. He's only 26 years old, and he's actually having a good year.
Yeah.
Baez not having a good year. Story not having a good year. Seager's not a shortstop. And you're not going to get Corey Seager to come to Seattle if you're pushing his brother out.
Sorry,
you know what I mean?
Sorry, Soba. That's been a hot topic in our shows. We've been trying to play fantasy and getting both the Seagers on the team, but it's just not a reality.
It's really not. And to be honest with you, I think what I would do is move Toro to third base and go hard after Marcus Semien. And I have it on good authority that that's the Mariners' number one target this offseason, is to try to get Semien. Now, it's not going to be easy because Toronto's got the inside track and he's loving it there and they're having a lot of fun and they might get into the postseason. And if not, it's still going to be this cool run and he's going to have fond memories of that. And he's going to like those players and to be familiar. So they're probably gonna have to overpay him to even have, a remote shot. But I think that's what they want to do. Now, that's the beauty of that trade and that player. If you have to leave Toro at second base because it's easier to find a third base bat than it is a second base bat, you have that flexibility. Leave Toro at second. He's got some work to do there. He's really slow turning the double play at second, for example. But he'll make plays that he's kind of Luis Soho over there. He'll make plays that he gets to. Not make a lot of mistakes, so you're fine. And if you need to go get that third base bat, you go get the third base bat. There's a lot of different ways to kind of look at it too. You need an impact starting pitcher. You need a one or a two. And if you have to go trade for that guy, you're probably not going to be able to go trade for the third baseman also. Yep. So if you figure out that the best way you're going to get your infield solidified and to add an above average to plus bat, you're going to have to sign a free agent starter. If you have to trade for the bat, you have to sign a starter. Well, there's only one starter out there that makes any sense in this case, and that's Kevin Gausman.
Yeah, so we're talking about Gausman.
Yeah, he's the only thing that I'm not sure of, and this is where I would defer to a team and their studies and their data people and their medical people, of course, is a guy that throws that many splitters and changeups. I mean, he literally is a fastball splitter changeup guy. It's the craziest arsenal of all time. Like, I did a game. I do stats for Aaron Goldsmith when he does Fox games. So we do like 10 or 15 games a year. And we did a Giants game. And through 4 innings, Gausman had thrown I think he'd thrown 53 pitches or something like that. And he'd thrown 13 four-seamers, and the rest were splitters and changeups. And he was dealing. He was throwing a one-hitter with 6 Ks. And it's how the hell does this guy do it? And is his arm going to fall off is my question. Is he going to have forearm issues? Because, Tim Lincecum admits that because he threw so many changeups over this 3-year period, his arm was just ragged after that. It wasn't the curveballs and the sliders and the fastballs and the fact that his delivery was so whack. It was throwing tons of changeups. Can do a lot of damage to your arm too. So, but Gausman being 30, probably not getting, more than 5 years. And if you can get him for 4 and 100 or 4 and 110, and then use your prospects to go get Jose Ramirez, your team's looking pretty good at that point. Yeah. So, but also looks pretty good if you can go sign Marcus Semien and then trade your prospects for a Pablo Lopez or a Sandy Alcantara from Miami.
Can we make a quick pit stop in San Francisco and talk about why do you think this pitching rotation has been they're just guys all on 1-year deals, and then they have the young kid who's number 2 in baseball behind DeGrom over the past 3 months. Do you know what I'm talking about? Anyways, they're all 4 of their starters are just shoving on people. Desclafani.
Alex Wood, Desclafani. Those are really good pickups. I know a guy that works for the Giants, and I was asking him how they came to the conclusion to go after. This is pretty funny. To go after Desclafani and Alex Wood, and he was like, "Well, our scouting department has always liked Alex Wood. He's not a super efficient guy usually, but he's been getting better, and he's just really competitive on the mound and gives his team a chance to win. So that was kind of a no-brainer, and they thought they could get him on a pretty team-friendly deal." And I said, "Well, what about Desclafani?" And he goes, "Well, we were listening to your podcast, and we thought, hey, that's a good idea." He was lying, but that was basically his way of saying everybody and their mom thought that was a good idea. So you didn't have anything on anybody, Church. Right. You look at a guy's it's kind of the Jerry Dipoto approach to acquiring players. He's been good before. He's not old. He can probably be good again. He's just coming off a bad year. You can probably get him for a steal. And if you have a very specific plan to fix him, to make some adjustments and get him back where he needs to be, you have a pretty good shot at having another good pitcher. They're doing things with former Mariner prospect Zach Littell that are going to start showing up a lot too. I think he's going to end up in the middle of their rotation next year. They're adding velocity, and he's adding a second breaking ball to his repertoire, and he's going with a knuckle grip instead. It's just like they get like Logan Webb is developing under them. They're just really good.
Yeah, Logan Webb was the guy I was trying to think of. He has like a 5-0 ERA with a 1.34 ERA over the last 10 starts. Like they're just finding guys that are just awesome.
Yeah, he was a pretty good prospect for a while. He's just a little bit of a late bloomer now. Okay. You know, like Cleveland's been doing that with guys for a few years. Houston obviously has been doing that with the Dallas Keuchels and the Colin McHughes and certainly Garrett Cole after that trade. But yeah, you have to be good at that sort of thing. And you know what? Seattle's actually been pretty good at that sort of thing, you know, and it's time for them now to start acquiring big leaguers like that a little bit more instead of young players that are kind of under the radar. Now you go out and find a guy who might cost you some money, might cost you 3 and 36 or 1 in 25 or whatever it is. But he's going to help you win now, and it's not about being able to flip him at the deadline. So that's the part of Jerry DiPoto's tenure in Seattle we don't know about yet because we haven't seen him try to do it. He's acquired young players for proven players. He's, you know, acquired club control for rentals, but now it's can you go find all-stars? Because he's got to do that a couple of times over the winter.
I know Soba has a follow-up question on that, but on the topic of DiPoto, I mean, and even Service for that matter, right? Like we've been in this rebuild mode for quite some time. It's no secret. We're curious. Well, yeah, no. Oh yeah, exactly. But I mean, we're curious on your take as to whether or not they get that contract extension. Are we going to see them around much longer? And is it results oriented, obviously? And
I think it's already done, to be honest with you. I really do. I look at it this way. If you're John Stanton and you no longer have Kevin Mather there to kind of guide you, like, not that was ever a good idea, but you're probably going to play it safe, if anything. And if you have questions whether Jerry DiPoto and Scott Service are your guy, really this comes down to DiPoto. DiPoto makes the Service decision. Mm-hmm. If DiPoto maybe isn't your guy, then he isn't your guy. If you're not confident that he's your guy, he's not. And if that's the case, you don't let him handle the draft and you don't let him handle the deadline.
Yeah, which they did.
So he doesn't have a contract. He's a lame duck general manager. Why would you do that?
So
if you're Jerry DiPoto thinking that you might be the lame duck guy, why would you handle the draft the way that you did? And why would you handle the deadline the way that you did? So I think it's already done. I think in principle, it's already done. They're just waiting for the right time to announce it.
I like that. And I want to see him stay. But another question I was curious to ask, because we were talking about our infield for, next year, maybe loving what Perry Hill has been able to do with Ty France at first base. I mean, Fangraphs has Ty France as leading All-American League first baseman and defensive runs saved this year. Do you see him solidifying himself in that role? And Evan White's going to really have to climb back up and prove that he can hit. I mean, he can play defense, but he can't hit.
Yeah, he's got a long way to go. I think the way it's turning out right now is we're going to start 2022 with Evan White. Like, we'll hear the public word that Evan White can earn a spot on the opening day roster this spring just by proving that he's healthy and going out and showing it. But he's going to start next year in AAA. This team doesn't have the the cachet anymore to go out with to open the season next year with 3 or 4 developing players in the starting lineup. You can't do it. You have to have some semblance of reliability and probability at, I would say, all but maybe 2 spots. Like, you can have Kelnick and Raleigh in the lineup regularly without, having tons of confidence. Like, you have tons of confidence Haniger, as long as he's healthy, is going to perform. You have tons of confidence that, at least Crawford's going to give you what he's given you this year or something like that. He's not going to fall on his face and be like one of the worst players in baseball or something like that. So, and same with Kyle Lewis. As long as he's healthy, you know he's going to give you something. So you can have confidence in that. Ty France now, I think we're there with him. And to a smaller extent, because the sample is smaller, Toro as well. But you can't go into the season hoping on 3 or 4 spots in the lineup.
Totally.
So
I
you have to cover, you have to, kind of CYA there to some extent. And Evan White has starts season in AAA.
Yeah. And I totally agree. And that also begs the question of Dylan Moore, right? Because wouldn't we consider him as one of those developing players that, what was it? The year before, Zweifel, you had mentioned this stat, his WAR was,
I was more
almost 2, but this year it's something like 0.3.
I can't remember what. I don't think he even has a positive WAR. That'd be hard. It's hard to believe. But his slugging percentage last year was close to 500. Or Jason, do you know it was in the 500s, wasn't it?
I'm not sure if it was that high or not. I can't really remember. But I'm actually pulling it up now. It was 496. You're right. It was pretty much 500. 255, 358, 496. But again, it's over 38 games, right? So how much confidence could you really have? Like if this were last year, if you did that last year, you might have some confidence, but that would be one of the few spots where you'd go in without like this highly probable performing player where maybe he's not an all-star, but you kind of know what you're going to get out of him. Right. If you plan on winning 90 games or more, you can't go in with 3 or more spots in your lineup, unknown. And if you're going to do that with Kelnick, because you are, and if you're going to do that with Raleigh, because you are to some extent, he's at least going to split time behind the plate next year. You can't do that anywhere else. So that puts some pressure on Jerry to fill out the roster accordingly. And I even think, and I mentioned this in the newsletter last night, and I mentioned this on the podcast early in the week. What about going out and assuming they do something at second base, like a Marcus Semien or a Chris Taylor or something like that, or at third base, they do something relatively significant and they get an average or above average bat at that spot and leave Toro at second. You still need another bat, because if you look at what that is versus what they have now, all you're doing is like, Taylor or Semien would be replacing Kyle Seager at that point. And while that might be an upgrade, you're still not adding a bat to the current lineup. So how much better are you actually? And you're relying on your improvement being about Kyle Lewis being healthy and taking another step, and Jared Kelnick taking a big step, and Cal Raleigh taking a big step. That's not how you plan to win. Like hope is not a course of action, right? So what about going out into that outfield and grabbing a Charlie Blackmon on a 1-year deal? Like if you look at what Black, now his power is down this year, but it looks like it's just kind of a coincidence. It's just this weird random thing. He's still hitting for some average. He's still getting on base. He's 35 years old, probably only takes a 1-year deal to get him. He's a fringe average right fielder. You stick him out there and he kind of shares time at DH and in right field with Mitch Haniger, and you get a lefty righty kind of thing, not a platoon. They both pretty much play every day. But what a guy like Blackmon can do for you, and he's just one example. What if Jared Kelnick hits 185 for 6 weeks to start the season again? Yeah. You can't ride that out. You can't sit there and go, well, if he doesn't hit, we're SOL. You can't do that next year. So you'd be able to just slide Blackmon over into left field and get something offensive, out of your outfielders. So I think something like that makes a lot of sense. We'll see where Jerry goes. It'll probably be a player none of us have ever heard of, but I do think he's considering something like that as well. You have to cover your bases. Look at what the Giants have done. Going back to the Giants, they do that. They do that sort of thing. They have 3 or 4 plans for just about every position on the field. Mm-hmm.
A couple things there is Blackmon was a Tri-City Dust Devil, which is where I'm at. So I saw Charlie Blackmon play before he came up. So I already love that idea there. But you brought up Chris Taylor. I was thinking, man, that's kind of interesting. And he plays so many different positions. What if you brought in Taylor and Semien? That's a little bit of overkill, but Taylor and Semien can kind of split that second and third. And then Taylor can work in the outfield too. I don't know.
Yep.
I was reading works. one of your excuse me, your articles in Prospect Insider, right? And that was what I think you referenced to be DePoto's worst trade ever. Taylor.
Yeah. I usually base how good or bad a trade is in terms of degree on what you get back versus what you give up, because there's so many other factors that go into what those players turn out to be. Chris Taylor was not going to turn into this in Seattle.
Yeah.
100%. It wasn't going to. Pablo Lopez was not going to turn into a number 2 starter in Seattle.
Yeah.
Freddie Peralta was not going to turn, because at the time.
Wait, we had Pablo Lopez?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did
So
not know that.
people are up in arms about, like, oh my God, he's traded so many good players. Look, those guys were like, Peralta and Lopez were like, they were low in the minors and 4 years away. And at the time, DePoto's development staff wasn't fully built yet. It usually takes a year and a half, 2 years for a GM to come in and like fully like redo that, right? And Milwaukee did a great job with Peralta, and the Marlins did a great job with Lopez, and the Dodgers did a great job with Chris Taylor. But nobody in the world thought those guys had this kind of potential. Like nobody, like not even the teams that acquired him. Like the Dodgers didn't think we're getting an all-star here. Sweet. They didn't think that. It's just something that's happened. Just like the Padres probably aren't thinking that they gave up a borderline all-star first baseman in Ty France and a viable number 2 catcher in Luis Torrens, who might hit 25 home runs. They didn't think they were giving that up either. When they made that deal last summer. It happens, and teams have other plans, and they have other ways to develop players. And sometimes you're kind of finding the key that unlocks, a player's potential. But yeah, that Chris Taylor deal, when you look at what the Mariners received in return for that, nothing, and very little shot at anything.
You got like Zach Lee and.
Yeah, Zach Lee didn't even hang around for like 2 or 3 years. If he'd have done that, I might think that the Milwaukee deal with Peralta or the Marlins deal with Lopez were worse, because they're probably more valuable players right now, or they would be more valuable players to Seattle. But Chris Taylor immediately started producing for the Dodgers to some level and turned into, again, like an all-star level player and a very valuable guy for fairly cheap early on. And the Mariners got nothing, like literally nothing, not even at the minor league level. They didn't get like, well, he was really good in the minors for a couple of years and he just turned into a 4A guy. Didn't even get that. Didn't even get those opportunities. And that looks bad. And it actually makes it look like whoever recommended that deal to Jerry was very, very based it on very, very shallow data. They base most of their deals on data these days, and they just didn't analyze the data very well in that one. I'm guessing that probably wasn't Jesse Smith's idea. Their baseball ops guy over there, who's data driven, but he also knows the game of baseball.
We had a chance to speak with Jesse a handful of weeks ago.
He's pretty
I can
great.
imagine the same. Yeah.
So you didn't ask him about that? Like, was it your idea to trade Chris Taylor for Zach Lee? I mean,
it might have been a sore subject, or
But Jason, another question I got for you. I was listening to your podcast, and you're talking about the rotation finishing out this year when Justin and Justice come back. I thought you made a really interesting point with saying they're probably going to go to the bullpen. And that would be the smartest move, because we got our 5 guys figured out right now, and they're doing pretty damn well, especially in this month. Is that what you think would happen when it looks like Justice is a bit further along in the rehabilitation than Justin is? But kind of just dive a little bit more into that for us.
Yeah, I think Sheffield. I don't think Sheffield's as close as people seem to think he is to coming back. People are like, oh, here he goes. Like, he's going to be back. It's not like next week. He's going to make at least 2, maybe even 3 rehab starts in the minors before he comes back, which means, if his first rehab start was today, which means he's at least 3 weeks from coming back. You pitch every 5th or 6th day. I mean, so we're talking September still. So the roster thing becomes a little easier in September. But yeah, I could see it might be beneficial, especially to a Yusei Kikuchi and a Logan Gilbert, to slide Sheffield in for 1 start, maybe. With a bullpen, kind of a bullpen plan, and maybe Don will be available then, and maybe you piggyback those guys in a start to kind of give the rest of the rotation that extra day, because making that transition mid-season is difficult. Going from 6 to 5 at the All-Star break can be difficult, especially on a young pitcher who's never pitched in a 5-man rotation until now, at least in pro ball. He's never pitched every 5th day. And Kikuchi, we've seen the transition bother him a little bit. He's gone from 5 to 6 to 5, and he's been good in the 6 and not so great in the 5. And maybe he's turning that around now, but it couldn't hurt to push everybody back a day, right? So I could see something like that. But everybody else seems to be like Marco is obviously, he looks like he's all the way back. He's figured it out. Yeah, and Tyler Anderson is Tyler Anderson. I mean, that guy would be Tyler Anderson might be Marco Gonzalez if he had a breaking ball. Like, seriously, give him. I mean, they're almost the same guy in a lot of ways, except Marco uses a 2-seamer and Anderson uses a 4-seamer. Though changeups and cutters and fastballs that are 88 to 92. I know Marco doesn't usually get, quite that high in velocity anymore, but they're essentially the same guy, except Anderson doesn't throw his curveball. Like, I think he's thrown like 14 curveballs all season. It's a weird, like 3-pitch. It's almost like Kevin Gossman, just not nearly as good. Fastball, cutter, changeup, no breaking ball. It's the weirdest thing. When you watch him, you're like, is he going to throw a breaking ball at some point here? No, he's not. He's not going to throw a breaking ball.
I think his stuff works. I think his stuff works just because he has that little hitch in his delivery, and like that fastball plays up a little bit. And it would be, but that's interesting. It would be really nice if you could develop some sort of a off-speed pitch that would kind of.
And he's got one. Like, he's thrown a slider before, and he's thrown a few curveballs. He may just, I don't know, maybe he's just not feeling it the last couple of years. So it doesn't really throw, and he hasn't really needed to be this viable back end starter. He throws strikes with everything, so he's kind of fun. I wonder what would have happened if, because I made the point when they acquired him. Not only is he an upgrade over the bullpen days that they were doing, and the Darren McCackens of the world.
Right.
He's an upgrade over Justice Sheffield and Justin Dunn from earlier in the season. So if you'd have had Tyler Anderson all year, for example, you're, probably 2 games better than you are right now. I mean, they were, I don't want to say they were giving away games, because they actually won a couple of those bullpen games, but
one against Shane Bieber.
They weren't winning a lot of those. Yeah.
And then I had another question, kind of a side question, and it's just my curiosity about what seemingly the MLB Network just seemingly hates the Mariners, and John Heyman in particular seems to hate the Mariners. And then, I actually tweeted at you, you replied, and I was like, this guy made a comment saying if a batter even flinches at a pitch, it should be called a strike. And he doesn't believe in the check swing. And I don't know, do you have any insight on what their deal is with the Mariners? Do they simply as the East Coast bias? Like, what's that about?
Right. So I'm going to add to that, actually. So at the deadline, and this isn't just MLB Network, but that they are absolutely guilty of it. And John Heyman is probably the worst. But even Tom Verducci, who I actually like, I actually like when he does games. He did a game with Aaron a couple of weeks ago, and I'm like, this is a good broadcast. Like, that guy, I know he's not a former player, but he knows what he's prepared. He knows what he's on. So deadline day came and gone. Jerry DiPoto does the presser, and I watched the presser. Like, I get the releases, and I clicked into the Zoom, and I'm watching, and I hear it. And Corey Brock opens up and asks him a question. He kind of starts his question off with, because, there was no move made on deadline day. Like, all the deals they made were and Corey Brock makes this, kind of goofy joke. Like, did your phone break, or did somebody steal your phone or something like that? Right. And then he rolled immediately right into his question. So there was nothing disrespectful about it whatsoever. It was Corey Brock, because they have a rapport. And Jerry answered, once Brock was done with his question, Jerry answered his question immediately. Right. MLB Network cut the video and the audio to make it look like Brock asked the question about the phone and then stopped. And then Jerry stared at him.
Wow.
And get this is the worst part. Tom Verducci wrote about it as if that's the way it went down.
Was this People's Magazine?
Yeah. So it's unbelievable. I could not believe what I was reading. I was like, who wrote this? And I was like, you got to be kidding me. Yeah. Tom Verducci wrote that. This is such lame crap. So MLB Network is just bad in general. I don't imagine you guys love the personalities as a whole at MLB Network, because they're bad. It's like there are very few color. You know who I actually like over there is Kevin Millar, because he has fun, right? Like, I'm not saying he's like the super insightful guy, but at least he has fun over there. Everybody else over there is, it's rose colored. John Heyman hates the Mariners because, one, he doesn't understand baseball. So it's easy to hate anything if you don't like it, or if you don't understand it, right? You hate it, you don't like it because you don't understand it. And because they don't leak information.
Right.
The Mariners are one of the tightest lipped teams in baseball, if not the tightest lipped team in baseball. The very few times where I get the hint of something, it comes from the fringe. It comes from like tertiary guys, like scouts or former scout. Like when I broke the pitching coach news when Woodworth got the job, I actually did it on my podcast, and I got that from a former scout. Jeff Sakamoto was like, "Yeah, Pete's getting the job," and I was like, "Wow, okay, this is cool." And then 2 days later, it was announced, right? And like I asked him after, and he goes, "The fact that you went with that, but you went with that on your podcast, which is behind a paywall, probably saved me from Pete Woodworth going, 'Did you tell somebody?' Because they know nobody in that front office is saying shit to anybody ever. Like ever. They don't say anything. If Jerry doesn't say it in an open forum, they weren't allowed to say it. Nobody was allowed to say it. So you leak, you get fired is essentially the approach over there. And Heyman wants to break news.
Yeah.
You know, and we're
just not letting them out.
Yeah, and Jerry doesn't want to give Heyman the time of day. Anymore. Why would you? He's a crusty old guy that makes his living off breaking news, but he's being masqueraded as some sort of baseball analyst. This is why Ryan Divish fascinates me. Okay, Ryan Divish probably knows baseball better than the majority of people that follow him or read him think he does. Because he's not trying to be an analyst. He's trying to ask the pertinent questions to tell the story, to make sure that his readers and people that follow him on Twitter and things like that have as much information as he can dig up, right? So the way he thinks about the game is a little bit more about how you or I might think about the game than the majority of beat reporters that are out there. And you get a guy like Heyman who, if he doesn't break news, he's not useful to anybody. And that's why you get the Mariners don't have a plan. The Mariners are losers at the trade deadline.
The camaraderie is shot because the Raven trade deadline.
Right, exactly. And that's why you get Heyman saying things like, "Hey, if they even flinch, it should be a strike." I mean, how insane is? I mean, that's like saying if you don't hit the home run at least 10 feet over the wall, it's not actually a home run. It's in play, and the outfielder can crawl over the wall and throw it back. And if you're slow and you can get thrown out, then just tough shit, right? Like what are we doing here, right? Like, I don't know why MLB Network gives that guy a platform. To me, it's almost like the Stephen A. Smith situation. It's so bad and so embarrassing that they actually reap rewards from it because it's clickbait. It gets people to tune in to click on their videos and to tune into their network. The MLB Network could be so good if they would just fire everybody pretty much that's on TV and hire everybody that's on their radio side and put them on the TV side. The MLB Network radio is pretty darn solid. It really, you get a little bit of the good old boy kind of traditional old school players that played in the 80s and 90s. You still get a little bit of that, but it's
Dave Valley on there.
But it's more fun though. They're not trying to, they're not trying to hide the fact that this is supposed to be fun and entertaining, and we're not necessarily always trying to provide, like this, kind of hardcore analysis. Like they're not trying to do that. I've always liked Mike Farron over there, who actually works for the Diamondbacks now. I've got to know him a little bit over the years, and he does a good job. And Dan Duquette and Casey Stern have done a good job over there for a while. But when reporter, like studio host, turns analyst, whether it's on their own or it's because the network asks them to do such a thing, it never works. It never. I mean, the Root Sports is doing that with their people. Like putting Angie in the booth calling a game is one of the biggest mistakes they've ever made. It's like people like it because they're giving a woman a shot. Great, but it's bad. Dan Wilson is terrible on the air. Like Root Sports has no idea what they're doing. Like, oh, he's a former player. Cool. It's all good. No, it's not. And Aaron Goldsmith carries Dan Wilson. Did you guys see the game the other day where Haniger hit the home run? Like he hit the ball really, really hard the first time. They caught it at the wall.
Yep.
Second time up, he gets fooled a little bit, but stays back, hits the ball out of the ballpark. Dan Wilson said something like that Mitch stayed through the ball, which doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't.
So Aaron was like, "Hey Dan, can you elaborate on that a little bit? Like, what do you mean by that?" And Dan said something to the effect of, "Yeah, he just stayed through the ball." Like that was his explanation. Come on, man. Like we all love Dan Wilson, but what are we doing?
Yeah, completely.
It's so bad.
Well, I mean,
that's not very good by. That's not very good by Goldsmith, though. You know that he just said something stupid. Why are you asking him to elaborate?
I mean, maybe he had a point though. Maybe it was going to be like, him keeping his head down, on the ball, or maybe it was going to be about, not getting too far out in front or keeping his hand. Like there was a good possibility that the explanation was going to make a lot of sense. Like it should have made a lot of sense, and it still can make a lot of sense, but nobody knows what Dan actually meant because he couldn't explain it. He's so bad. I mean, you guys have heard it. Poor Dave Sims. Like I understand that some people really love Dave Sims on the air. I'm not the biggest Dave Sims fan on TV. I think he's better on radio, but Dave Sims is like a tremendous dude, right? Yeah, that guy's a tremendous dude.
He was the first guy we spoke with on our first
episode 1. Nice. He came on.
Episode 1, yeah.
Very nice. He's a great dude.
Yeah.
He one day during the NFL draft, he DM'd me and said, "I'm bored. Let's talk baseball." It's the first time we'd ever talked.
Yeah.
It was just this past year. Hey, call. Let's talk. I'm an Eagles fan. We don't draft for a while. Let's talk some baseball. So we did. He's great. But poor Dave on the air. Dan is like this roving coordinator, works with catchers and pitchers, for the Mariners, right? And I can't remember which affiliate that he had just came from. I think it was Tacoma, actually. And this was back in like May. And Dave Sims is like, "Oh yeah, down there at Tacoma, like Logan Gilbert just made his first start down there, Dan. Like, what do you think of Logan Gilbert?" And Dan's answer is like, he's working really hard, throwing strikes and just trying to, like, it was so generic, right? So, so fine, like whatever.
Yeah.
And then like a couple of weeks later, Dan came from Everett, and like Emerson Hancock and George Kirby and all these names, on the pitching staff, right? And Dave's like, you down there, you're working with Kirby and Hancock. Yeah, those are two big names. I think fans are most familiar with those two. Do either of those pitchers remind you of somebody that you played with? Like, give me a comp on one of those guys, and Dan's answer was everything except the comp, everything except actually answering the question. It was like, am I watching CNN? Like, what is happening here? Like, great way to not answer. I mean, it's unbelievable how bad Dan Wilson is. He was a great player for the Mariners, a great player for them. He really was.
Sure.
I understand he's not Hall of Famer.
He's our best catcher we ever had. Probably.
Right. Like Randy Johnson was throwing balls 46 feet and Dan Wilson never had a pass ball. That's the way I remember Dan Wilson's career. He never let a ball get by him ever. It never actually happened. And if you show me video that it happened, it didn't actually happen and you doctored the video. That's how we feel about Dan Wilson, right? Like he was so great. Even though he really couldn't hit most years, he is so bad on the air. It's just, it's embarrassing. It's absolute. It's just, I don't understand why they don't just go. Like, I don't like Ryan Rowland-Smith. I don't. But he's significantly better on the air than Dan Wilson. I don't understand why we don't get a little bit more Dave Valley or a little bit more Ryan Rowland-Smith when Blowers is out, because Dan Wilson,
I think the accent has some novelty to it. Right. I mean,
sure. I mean,
Andy was
doesn't do anything for me, but
so they got, I guess.
Right.
I'm curious, would you like to see, Jason, like somebody, because when I'm listening to like a Yankees broadcast or something like that, these guys are so biased towards their Yankees while they're reporting on them and commentating on them. Would you like to see somebody in that Root Sports booth where they would be like noticeably saying like, "Let's go Mariners," like when a good hit happens, like if something like that.
I think that's what we get though. That's what we get from Jen Mueller. That's what we get from Brad Adam. That's what we get from Tom Glasgow. That's what we get from Angie Mentink, right? Like from the analyst point of view, and the way the Mariners are looking at this is the casual fan, or the fan that's not even really casual yet, maybe potentially a new fan that's tuning in. That's how they're thinking about this. In doing so, though, they alienate essentially folks like you and me. saying we already got you, we don't care. It's like the whole AT&T or T-Mobile thing. We got you, you're not eligible for any of the deals because the deals are only for new customers. That's essentially what Root Sports is doing. So what I'd like to see is a mix. If you're going to have some of that, fine, but put somebody in that booth. I don't care if it was a former player. They can prove to me that they understand baseball and that they have an ongoing, continuous conversation about baseball with people in the game. They can prove that to me, and I will trust them, and there will be value in their opinion. Put them in there, and kind of the anti-Dave Valley, the anti-Ryan Rowland-Smith. That doesn't mean that they're always going to be negative, but it's okay to point out that Marco Gonzalez's cutter has been absolute trash. You don't have to say it like that, but it's okay to say that. It really is. And Ryan Rowland-Smith actually did that. Again, I'm not a fan of the dude, but he was willing to say, I can't even remember the player. Mitch Haniger, and he's really been struggling lately. I think he's been chasing balls. It's okay to say that. You don't even get a lot of that from Mike Blowers. Be very careful about who your employer is. And
oh boy,
I just and it's so weird that the Mariners own 2/3 of Root, and yet they don't make any of the decisions. Really, they have say, but no final say. They still have it separated out where there's Root Sports leaders that are making the decision about who's on the air. Like, I get nothing from anything Root does. If it's on a Tuesday, I don't watch. I even tell Aaron, I love Aaron Goldsmith as a dude. I love him on the air. He tells great stories, but on Tuesdays, I don't listen. That's a radio day for me. And when it's like players, day, when they do the whole Blowers, Mentink, Valley, Rowland-Smith kind of a thing, I'm out. I'm out, completely out. I can't do it. And now, whether it's a Tuesday or not, if Dan Wilson is in for Mike Blowers, I'm out. I can't do it. Like, he's the nicest guy in the world, but that doesn't mean he's not bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who I've enjoyed listening to when he comes back is Brett Boone. When he gets on the air, is always interesting because he's edgy, and you feel like he's a little bit of a cocky asshole. If
oh yeah.
But, I mean, like,
is. Yeah,
he definitely is. But I mean, it's like, I don't know. I just, for one, I caught a home run ball from him in 2001. So that was probably makes me a little bit biased, but like he would provide a little bit more of that real feel for like what's going on. Like, could be critical of the guys, and you can take him his word for it because he was a good baseball player. And
I think the one thing that's dangerous about a guy like Brett Boone is how much is he actually staying connected to the game? Because he knew baseball in 1994 and 2003, but the game changes. What does a player go through now? The Mariners like Mike Cameron. He did nothing for me the innings that he was on except nostalgia, basically, right? Like, in terms of like an analyst, like that's not what that was about. And I don't know that he can provide that. I think he's actually very old school in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
He's they teach launch angle and it's BS, and that's not actually what Seattle teaches. But that's his kind of approach to everything, that the way that he did it, the way that he was taught is the only way to do it.
You can go up there and you can spout facts, right? But at least, and this isn't to say that they're always doing the best job at this, but you're mixing statistics and putting it in a way that's digestible for the viewer or listener to actually tell a story, to actually make you interested in baseball, right? And so many people out there don't have even the remote sense of that skill. And now that I think about it, I was watching the Dan Wilson game yesterday, and I think the fact that he was just, I think the fact that he was just talking, I was like, oh man, this is pretty nostalgic. I love having Dan there, but I think you have converted me. I think looking back on it, there wasn't one thing that was very intriguing.
There's nothing wrong with the nostalgia
inspiring
thing being enough for you. There's nothing wrong with that, but it will wear off at some point because and when it's going to wear off, when the Mariners are good and you're even more interested in them, and you're more interested in every word that's said on the broadcast, even more so than you are today. They could, a year from now, they could be on pace for 94 wins and competing for the division championship, and you're going to care a lot more about what Dan Wilson says than you do right now. And when he's out there, basically saying nothing, blowing bubbles in the booth,
Yeah.
You're going to be like, Dan, the man, come on. Like I'll complain about this. I got a buddy, Joe, who works over at ESPN, who basically taught me everything I know about writing. We text during the games, like constantly, and even before the games and stuff. And I said, dude, I can't do this anymore. Like a couple of weeks ago. And he goes, the man holding you back. I said, you knew exactly what he goes. Yeah, I'm watching too. And it is painful. Like it's just become difficult. Like,
dude, I got to go back and find this, Mitch Haniger play. Rewatch that. That sounds like it was a good TV for all the worst.
Yeah, it's bad. Aaron even has. Aaron has. I mentioned this on Twitter the other day about Aaron having stories like he's a wizard, like he's been around for 500 years, and I told him that on Saturday. We've been doing some games remote where we do it from his house, where a studio is set up at his house because broadcasters aren't traveling for every game. And then when he travels, I do the game from my house and I send him stats during the game, like from where I'm sitting right now. But last weekend I was at his house, and after the game is over, we always talk about the broadcast and how it went, and it always leaks over into the Mariners broadcast. And he was telling me, I was saying, yeah, the Nelson Cruz story was great. And like the Nelson Cruz's cousin or whatever, the cab driver, I was like, that was amazing. And it's like, the funniest thing is Nelson Cruz was like, yeah, that's him. He's such a nice guy, isn't he? And we're just like laughing about like Nelson Cruz. Like, yeah, that's what he would say. And I said, how many stories can you not tell on the air? Like, how many stories are there that, like, if we were sitting in a bar, like you might be, and I was surprised that he said really none, because one of the skills of being a broadcaster is being able to tell the clean version of the story. Yeah. And that he's actually done that tons of times on the air. So yeah, Goldsmith stories for days. The guy's, he's like 37 years old. He's got stories like he's Vin Scully. It's absolutely crazy. It's a huge talent. And I've been very fortunate to get to know him a little bit over the last couple of years. He's actually an underrated football guy too.
Yeah, he had mentioned that's kind of where he started off for some no-name college schools, right?
Yeah.
He had mentioned the story of his first time ever calling a home run, and the way he framed it, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, he had mentioned to us, he said, I was in the booth and it's went something like this, and the ball is swung and it's a home run. And it just was so melancholy.
No enthusiasm behind it.
Yeah. Didn't know what to do with it.
That's pretty great.
And then he was also telling us that in games, like sometimes he doesn't know, this is more in like minor league, I guess, when he was commentating on them. He'd say, like, I didn't know the guys' names and who they were. So I would make up, the last name of my father-in-law or just stuff like that. He just is quick on the spot like that. And I'm like, that's just hilarious. I mean, the guy's got an amazing personality.
Yeah, he does. And he is exactly who he comes across as anytime.
Yeah.
Like, you guys talk to him. That is exactly who he is always.
Totally.
He is. I will pull up in his driveway and he sees me pull up and he just opens the front door. And I walk in and it's immediately, hey man, how you been, man? Like genuine, like really cares about how things are. And he's not just one of those, like we're in a time in America where it's like, we're being told by, psychologists, don't ask how people's day was. Don't ask how work was. Don't ask and Aaron's like double middle finger to that because he actually cares. You know what I mean? So
totally.
It's he's that guy. Which is really cool. It makes it that much easier to root for him when you're watching Root Sports.
Sure.
I mean, his story in general is just amazing of how quickly he got to the position he's at. I mean, doesn't that normally take like 15, 20 years? He got there in what, 6?
Yeah, it sometimes it never happens for guys. I mean, you think about guys like I think about Steven Davis, who's the AA Arkansas guy. He's been around for a long time now, and he's probably never getting a shot. Like most of those guys are. One of my favorites was Mike Sager, who had a little bit of Vin Scully in his voice, and he called Cal League games for 2 different teams down there, including the Mariners affiliate for a while. And he just retired because minor league baseball is not paying those guys anything anymore, and he just had to get out. Which is sad. but he'd been in the business for like 28 years and never even got an opportunity to go beyond A ball. And then there's a guy like Pat Dillon in Everett, who I just saw last night. Like, he's really good and the nicest guy on planet Earth. And like, he's probably never going beyond Everett, even though there's some interest, at this point in his career for him to do so. Like, he's not like tied down in this area anymore. Like, his kids are getting older, and it's like, if somebody gave him an opportunity, they might actually move. Well, he's probably not getting it because teams hire their friends now. That's it. They'd rather make a bad hire, but hire their friends and people that they know than go out and actually, so hopefully for Mariners fans' sake, the Mariners take care of Goldsmith. I know he doesn't want to leave.
Yeah.
You guys probably asked him or, on or off the air about that. I know he doesn't really want to leave, but, you don't get to the big leagues and spend as much time. I mean, what's he, 8 or 9 years in now, without wanting to be the guy. Yeah. And he's been sharing time, this whole time. And I think Sims just signed a new deal last season, to continue for another 3 or 4 years. So it's like, how many games is Aaron going to get on the air, on television? Like, maybe not a ton. And that's, that's disappointing. But I know the Mariners don't want to push Sims out. But if Sims is getting, Sims is going to be 70 years old pretty soon.
Yeah.
Like, he seems to lose his train of thought, like, a lot of the times when he's talking.
Yeah, this is just my opinion. It seems like he gets lost because he's trying to be exciting instead of just tell me what happened. And you don't have to be that descriptive because I can also see it. Mm-hmm. Like, television is so different. Aaron's doing a lot more college football this year than he's ever done before. We're actually going to Dallas for that the game at AT&T Stadium in football on his spotter. Yeah, so that's the first weekend in September, the Saturday before Labor Day. But I think he's got 10 or 11 games this year, and he usually only does like 5 or 6. He wanted a full package this year, so he's gonna be busy over the off season. And one of the reasons I think why he's wanted to do that was he's not 100% sure about the situation in Seattle. Like, how's that going to turn out? Like, I gotta get out there and show myself to as many markets as possible and as many sports as possible, because, while they want to be here, maybe you
gotta take care of themselves.
Yeah. Maybe it's not going to work out where he's here for 30 years.
Yeah. Well, I had another question for you. Somebody had texted me, and I don't know how, much weight this carries behind what they said, but they were telling me that maybe in half a month or something, it might be getting announced that in 2023 the All-Star game may be coming to T-Mobile Park. I was curious if you had heard anything about that.
I haven't. Not that I would anyway, but the All-Star game bores me to death. So somebody could have said, "Hey, dude, the Mariners are getting the All-Star game in 2023," and it probably just would have went
right over your head.
Right over.
I was like, you told me that? Oh, I don't remember. And it's funny. I don't know when the All-Star game exactly became completely 1,000% useless to me, but because I used to like it as a kid. Mm-hmm. But now it's just this, it's in the way. Yeah. It's in the way. It doesn't, the game doesn't matter. I get enough enjoyment out of.
Does it not choose home field advantage anymore?
No, not anymore. No, it's just for the MLB.
And that just made me hate it more anyway. Yeah, like completely. How stupid that was. So that didn't help me.
When did that change?
A couple of years back. Yeah, I think it's been maybe 3 or 4 years now.
It'd be cool if they started utilizing that Field of Dreams for maybe an All-Star game.
You know what I think they should do with it? That was cool. And I'm assuming all you guys watched that. That was really cool. I had to watch it on replay last night. It was pretty great. What I think they should do is, that day, and we had it this year, usually there's a day after the All-Star break is over where that Thursday there's one game. And then everybody else returns on Friday. That Thursday is when the Field of Dreams game. It should be every year. Every year I have a Field of Dreams game, and it should be that Thursday after the All-Star game. And, I've been talking about a lot of things on baseball things about like how Major League Baseball gets people's eyeballs and brains on their league and their sport more often and for longer and for it to be positive. Like think about, they moved the draft to July this year. Think about moving the draft to the weekend between the All-Star game and trade deadline week.
Yep.
So then you get the All-Star break, where you get the futures game, you get home run derby, you get the All-Star game. And then the next weekend you get the draft. And then the next week you get the trade deadline at some point, whether the trade deadline's on Wednesday or Saturday, doesn't really matter all that much. And imagine somebody asked me the other day when I was answering questions on the podcast about, would you like a draft lottery or would you like to be able to trade draft picks? And think about allowing the trading of draft picks, but only allowing the trading of draft picks on draft day and televising it.
What is the reason that they can't trade draft picks? I've always wondered that.
It's just a rule. It's just a rule that's always been there. You can't trade draft picks, and they've just never. It's been talked about a little bit. There was some concern 10, 15 years ago that it would just be an accounting nightmare, but there are ways to avoid that because there were 50 rounds, and it's like there could be so much moving up and down, and it's like how the hell do
you can't trade anything past your 15th round or something, but I don't know.
I mean, you can get really strict and make it really fun for fans, like. Maybe only allow first round picks to be traded, or maybe only allow first and second round picks to be traded. And there are ways to avoid teams simply always trading away their first round picks so they don't have to pay them the bonus money, because that's what a lot of teams would do. That would happen. But maybe you can only trade out of the first round one time. The next year you can't do it. You can trade within the first round. If you have the number one pick, you can trade down or you can trade up, but you can't trade out of the round 2 years in a row. That would prevent teams from using the draft for something other than what it's meant to do, which is to spread the wealth essentially and help teams get better. But imagine having the draft that third weekend or fourth weekend in July, and having essentially the trade deadline get ignited by teams trading draft picks that they were going to use for players, and it be kind of part of the deadline. Like how many people are watching that? If that's the only time you can actually trade the draft picks, once the draft starts at, 3 p.m. or whatever, aren't people glued into that? Like if you televised the trade deadline, which is essentially what you would be doing, like people would watch that, right?
Without a doubt.
Well, I don't know why they don't do that. Get the draft involved. You'd have 3 weekends in a row. Drafts, you'd have all-star game, draft, and trade deadline, where the sports world essentially is glued to your sport.
And then, it gives great momentum for the second half of the season too.
Right.
Yeah.
The stretch drive, the final 2 months becomes absolutely nuts.
Right.
Right. And because there'd be even more anticipation. Now it's like May and June comes along and people aren't talking about, well, can the Dodgers go out and trade for Max Scherzer? It's, I wouldn't want them to give up, Gray and Ruiz. It'd be like, well, they can throw in a draft pick. Like it extends the conversation out in time and in breadth. It's like if people like you and you guys and me and fans were running Major League Baseball, it would be so much better.
Yeah.
Like this is a no-brainer. Done. Done. It costs no money to do this. We're already putting fools in the studios and doing the draft. Let's just move the draft back another, an additional week or two, put it in between the All-Star game and trade deadline week. We'll kickstart deadline week and we'll blow this out. It'd be a huge TV event. We'll let ESPN televise it as well. And like eyeballs will be on our sport for 3 consecutive weeks.
Yeah.
But no, they're not even thinking about it. They're just like, no, we'll just keep the draft dry and boring as what. And every pick will be unbelievable and amazing. And every black center fielder is Griffey or Adam Jones, depending on which side of the plate they hit from. It's like, if you can get people to care about the draft, about the baseball draft, even 30% more than they do now, the growth of the game is enormous. Because what happens when a 10-year-old kid sees Harry Ford and goes, ooh, now he is locked into Harry Ford for life, right? He is locked into Harry Ford and he's like rookie ball. He wants to go to spring training. He wants to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that happened to me when I was a kid. Like, why aren't we trying to do that?
I have to bring this up. Why is it that Adam Jones is every comp? Like every black outfield comp is Adam Jones. Like even I did it. Like my buddy was asking about Kyle Lewis coming up, and it was like, who do you kind of see him as? It was like, well, I kind of see like a little Adam Jones there. Like everyone, Adam Jones is just Mr. Comp.
It's really easy to compare white players to white players, black players to black players, Latin players to Latin players. It's really easy to do that because when we think of comps, that like the first place our brain goes when we think of comps is in style. What does it look like? Instead of what does this player produce? Like if you ask me for like one of my comps for Jared Kelenic was Matt Holliday. Yeah, they're both white, but one's right-handed and one's left-handed. But it's like, if you look at the peak of Matt Holliday, that's the peak potentially of Jared Kelenic. Like, I don't care about the left-handed, right-handed thing. I don't care about Kelenic being a better athlete. I'm looking at what role is that player potentially going to play. So when I saw Kyle Lewis, like I understood the Adam Jones thing. I understood we got some Mike Cameron because he glides, you know, there was some of that thrown out on draft day as well. But I really liked the Ron Gant comp, and I really liked somebody threw a Eric Davis comp at me too. And then I asked one of the Dodgers scouts, I was like, I understand that that's not why you said this, but is there a comp out there for Kyle Lewis that isn't a black player?
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, anybody that hits 260 with 25 to 30 homers.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter, you know, like really the comp is about what the player produces. And
I can respect the Matt Holliday comp. He's probably a little bit better athlete than Matt Holliday, but
he is. Yep.
But no, I like that a lot. I've my buddy asked me, I said he's kind of a more pop Grady Sizemore with like not quite as good at fielding as well, but
sure. Yep. But
no, you don't like that. You can tell me you don't like that.
The only reason it's not that I don't like it. It's like you think about if you go look at what Grady Sizemore did and what we think Jared Kelenick's going to do, the triple slash just looks different.
Okay,
it just does. I mean, you even had to qualify it, just like with the Holiday thing. Like Kelenick's a better athlete than Holiday, and one's left-handed and one's right-handed. But you see,
you won the comp game.
No. There's always a qualification because no two players are the same. That's all I'm saying. Like your comp isn't any worse than mine. It's just what then it comes down for me. Which parts of the players is most important? Like for me, the Holiday comp comes because the defensive portion of the comp isn't nearly as important as the offensive part. So I'm really trying to tell the story of here's what Kelenic can do offensively. Like it doesn't need to be a perfect match because there's no such thing. Yeah. Like the whole Kyle Lewis, Adam Jones thing. Like Lewis always had better control of the strike zone than Adam Jones. High school, college, minor leagues, now that he's in the big leagues. So you were going to get a different player. They weren't the same. That wasn't a great comp, but you always have to make some kind of a qualification. When Kelenic first hit pro ball out of the draft, I heard a lot of Nick Markakis because he was this fast, smaller player, and now he's gotten bigger and he's more of a power guy that can run a little bit instead of a guy that can run that might develop power. But yeah, for me, that's been a struggle, a little bit of a disconnect between the fan and somebody that's doling out comps is that I'm not looking for a style comp. I'm not looking for a visual comp. I'm looking for a role comp. I'm looking for a production comp. And for an everyday player, for a position player, the bat is like 90% of that. So I need to nail the bat, and if I can do that and I feel good about that, I'll ignore everything else.
Well, Church, we've kept you on for much more than our initial time slot, but we've appreciated your time. One last question I had for you before, we sign you off. As far as the rest of the season goes, right? How would you thus far grade the Mariners season? Number one, and number two, there are reasons to be optimistic and plenty of reasons to be pessimistic just with the road bumps we've hit over the last couple of weeks, but do we still have a shot for the playoffs?
Yeah, I think they do. And obviously, if you look at odds and chances of making the postseason.
We don't want to look at those.
It's gone up and down. But you know what? What was the highest you ever saw? I think the highest I saw was like 6.1% was the highest that I saw, at least since July came along, and it probably peaked after Dylan Moore's grand slam and the 11-8 win in game 1 of the Astros series.
Right.
I think that was the highest, and it depends on whose formula you look at, but the Yankees have always had a higher shot. The Blue Jays have always had a higher shot. The A's, of course, the Red Sox, the Rays. I think the season's a success almost no matter what happens the rest of the way. I really do. I mean, I don't know exactly how many games they have left, but what is it, 48 or something like that?
Roughly, yeah.
If they go 24-24 the rest of the way and they finish the season 6 games over 500, 84-78, is that a failure of a season in a season where they weren't really supposed to compete? Like Jerry DePoto wanted it to be a season where they competed, but he wasn't allowed to build that team because of the kibosh put on payroll last winter. Like this is I'd probably give it a B if I'm giving it a letter grade, maybe a B plus even. I think they've learned a lot of things, and I think maybe the most exciting thing about this season for me as I look forward, if I'm a fan and I'm watching this team and I'm reading about this team and I'm learning about this team, and at the end of the season, maybe they fall 4 or 5 games short of a playoff spot. The most exciting thing about this is we saw Jerry DePoto consider strongly trading big time prospects for an impact starting pitcher. That is the most exciting thing that has happened this season. They were very serious about Jose Barrios until it just got out of hand, which tells me they're going to revisit those sorts of things with some starters over the offseason. It tells me that they don't just plan on like gradually and organically getting better over the next couple of years, that they kind of mean business, so to speak. That tells me a lot. Yeah, they're going to spend a little bit of money. It's not going to be huge, but we might get one significant free agent signing, whether it's Gossman or Marcus Semien or somebody like that. I don't know, or both. I don't know, but I think the best player they acquire over the winter is going to be via trade, and I think it's probably going to be a starting pitcher. And it's probably going to hurt a little bit. You're probably going to say goodbye to Kirby or Hancock or Noelvi Marte or 2 of them or something like that. But that major league roster is going to be significantly better. And I have more confidence in that now than I did on, say, July 25th because of the way those talks went for Jose Barrios before the deadline. So successful season, certainly. I think some things this winter are going to happen that people don't like. You're not going to get any of the shortstops most likely unless one of them wants to take a very short deal. You're not getting it. It's just not happening. You're not getting anybody on an elite contract this winter, and the shortstops are really the only ones that are going to warrant that. And Kyle Seager's probably gone, and people aren't going to like that. And they're going to see that as if the front office is inept, when in essence you have to wait to kind of see what happens when the smoke clears, just like at the trade deadline. If they go out and they add a Jose Ramirez or a Chris Bryant or a Marcus Semien, and that's who you essentially put in Seager's place, well then you have to admit that's pretty good. That's a pretty good swap, moving forward. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be really fun. And I think Jerry strikes really, really early in the offseason. That's probably the thing I would bet on the hardest, that the first 5 to 10 days we see something fairly significant.
Yeah. Let's hope so.
Yeah.
Well, you heard it here, folks. Jason A. Churchill, founder, prospect, insider, and executive copy editor at DataScribe. Church, we appreciate your time, man. Super insightful stuff.
Hey, anytime, guys. And I mean that, anytime. I've been thinking about doing some post-game Zoom conversations. So we should talk about maybe doing some of that down the stretch drive and getting you guys involved and just kind of
100% in.
Inviting people in, inviting fans in, and we'll kind of like host it together, and they can either listen or they can jump in. But I think that might be fun and kind of set a nice community precedent for over the off season and next year, because we get the hockey thing here and people are into it and people are loving the Sounders. But one thing we know for sure in this town, no matter what else is going on in the sports world, if the Mariners win, people will care. Yes. They will give a damn. They will tune in. They will watch. They will go to games, and they will tune in to Mariners podcast and Zooms So yeah, let's get something like that going. Maybe we'll get Joe Doyle to join us or somebody like that. I know you guys have seen him just to get some fun conversation,
Totally.
either during games or after games or whatever it is. We should talk about that.
Yeah, you've got my Twitter, man. If you always hit us up, that is something we'd be so excited to do. I mean, we started doing this podcast because we saw like what's happening, what's going to be coming in the future. And our biggest goal is to just get the average fan to pay more attention to these guys, to want to go to the stadium, put their butts in the seat and cheer these guys on. And that's just the number one goal. And I mean, that sounds amazing. It sounds like so much fun.
Absolutely. Like we just went almost an hour and a half and it felt like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
That's so true.
How easy is that, right?
It's awesome. All right,
thanks,
man.
guys.
Really appreciate the time, Jason. Talk to you later, man.
Well, wow, guys, that was a very impressive interview that you guys had. It seemed like he had some great insight that he passed about the Mariners. Sat down with us with you guys for more than an hour, so it guys, it shows that he really knew what he was talking about. Yeah. So, what were some kind of the highlights from from the interview from your guys' perspective?
I loved it. I thought it was funny. So if there's the two boys on the show, Zweifel and Max, they are very sensitive about the time that we do these interviews and like how long they go and whatnot, and if we're running over time. And we're in our little group chat on the side, and 30 minutes is coming real close. And Schwab was like, "Hey guys, we got to wrap it up. 30 minutes." There's like, "My God, relax." Churchill's running with it. He's talking to us. He's having fun, and it was crazy, man, because it ended up going like an hour and 15 minutes as you guys just listened. And as you heard him say, he was like, "This felt like 20 minutes, but we've been talking for almost an hour and a half. Like, this is just easy. This is fun." And he couldn't have said it better. And then as he said at the last part of that interview, something really, really cool for, I guess, us more so as Monday Mojo guys. He said at the end that he's been thinking about getting, post-game Zoom meetings with other reporters or other media such as ourselves.
That'd be so cool.
And for fans to chime in and ask questions. And he's talking about getting us and maybe Joe Doyle on that as well. And this is what, our 25th episode now, or 24th, something like that. And we've been trying to do little things like that or to get our name out there a little bit more. And it seems like Churchill is going to be helping with that. And so just as a Monday Mojo guy, I thought that was really, really cool.
Yeah. I thought it was hilarious what he said about Dan Wilson.
Oh, dude, about all of the broadcasters, except he loves Goldie.
We love Goldie, and I personally love Dave Sims. The way he makes the broadcast seem a little bit more casual. I mean, that's my own thing, but I appreciate what he says. I think that Mariner fans deserve a more what's the word I'm looking for? Just an honest viewpoint up in the booth, right? Like, we've been dealing with bullshit for 20 years now, and there is no real reason, I guess, to sugarcoat certain wrongdoings that our team is doing. Like, if Mitch is struggling and not hitting the ball, like, let's talk about that instead of saying, well, like, he's got 26 home runs this year and blah blah blah. And I think Church has a point, right? I think it's important to be like, hey, this is what we're doing wrong. And this was a good move. This was a bad move, at least perceived by the public, instead of sugarcoating everything.
And I thought it was interesting how he did say, so the M's own 2/3 of Root Sports, right?
Right.
And I don't know what goes on behind the scenes. If there's something that Root Sports and the Mariners like, don't say anything negative about the people employing you. Mariners and Root Sports employing these broadcasters. And he brought up a point. He's like, sometimes these guys are, they don't know if they can talk any shit about these players or something like that. They don't want to hurt the brand of the Mariners. And like, that is something that needs to get out the window. That needs to get thrown away. Needs to get burnt, light a fire to it, whatever you need to do. And like you're saying, Max, they need to be honest. And like Mitch Haniger right now, his average is good and he comes up in some clutch situations, but in some other clutch situations, you see him just striking out, swinging at the first pitch, and it's a breaking ball down and away, or down and in. He's getting on top of it and he's missing it. He seems to be chasing a little bit too much, and it's okay to say that stuff. It's honest and it's an honest viewpoint. But I agree. It's
something that we don't really hear. But then you have Dan Wilson, who can't make sense of really anything. And I think that anecdote that he had about he just stayed through the ball. Well, can you elaborate on that, Dan the man? Well, I just stayed through the ball.
I think for me,
get the hell out of here.
Yeah, no, I mean that was super funny, and I like. I mean, there was an hour and 15 to digest, so I like that as well. But my favorite part of talking to him was talking about the Jared Kelnick comp, because it's been something that's been on my mind for a long time. And hearing a new guy, Matt Holliday, I'll have to go in and kind of look over what Matt Holliday did in his career. Obviously, we know who he is, but it's a little different when you're looking at through those glasses now that you're comparing him to our future young star. And then hearing what he had to say about what we would do, or what he thinks we're going to do in the offseason, and kind of giving us a little bit that he thinks Simeon is their number one guy that they're going for. And then he thinks that we're probably going to trade for a big pitcher, and also looking at Gossman. So, we've been, that's been a big topic of how we're going to spend this money. We've been in rebuild mode and we're getting all these controllable players. Well, next year we're going to have a lot of money to spend. Kevin Mather's out of there, so it looks like it's going to be freed up a little bit to go after it. And then just kind of hearing some of those names that could be, those dollars could be allocated to. I thought that was interesting as well.
Yeah. One point that Chris was talking about offline about Logan Gilbert, right? He's had, let's see, the last two starts. He started this past week off against the Rangers, didn't get the win. And then he was on the bump today for the series finale against the Blue Jays. And it seems as if Logan has kind of hit a hiccup in, his delivery, so to speak. Not mechanically speaking, but, performance-wise. Chris or Soba, I know you wanted to get into that.
Yeah, so I don't think it's necessarily mechanically. I think it's just like right now in the first outing of the week against the Rangers, 72 of his pitches were four-seam fastballs, 19 were sliders, and then 4 of those were changeups, 2 of them were knuckle curves. So the majority of everything that he threw in that outing was either a four-seamer, which we all know that he's highly, highly in love with, and it works for him. He's always throwing it at the beginning of the count most often, and then he'll throw a slider, and very rarely is mixing up a changeup or a breaking ball in there. And then in today's outing, he had 56 four-seamers, 23 sliders, 6 curveballs, and 3 changeups. And specifically today against an offense like the Blue Jays, they are coming out swinging at the first pitch, and that's gonna be their approach to trying to get it at any pitcher really very early in the count. I mean, Vlad Guerrero leads the league in first pitch home runs. He leads the league in first pitch singles or base hits or whatever it is. And Bo Bichette is like right behind him, and Teoscar Hernandez, that guy absolutely went off today. He almost hit the cycle. But it's just the fact that he's been going off. And I think it's just the fact that he's reached his about 80 innings or so this year, Logan Gilbert has, and he didn't play last year. So I don't know if it's something, maybe if it's something about, getting tired this deep into the season. That is just a guess and nothing confirmed clearly. But I'm just kind of curious, is he going to start working in these other pitches a bit more? Because when that changeup, we've seen it work. We've seen that changeup work specifically on left-handed batters. It has some bite that goes away from the left-handed batter, and they swing and miss. And it can be something that could be pretty powerful for him, but we're just not seeing it utilized. And so that's something I'm curious to see as he progresses further into the season, towards the end of it. Does he start mixing up these pitches a little bit more? Because he's got a 96 mile per hour heater, sometimes topping at 97. If you're a hitter and you're looking for that, there's a lot of opportunities that you're going to be getting to find that fastball.
That's fair enough. And I think that, you can look into that a little bit, but just to kind of play devil's advocate, I think, almost all power pitchers are, especially if they don't have a great feel for a lot of this other breaking stuff and changeups and curveballs, whatnot, early in their career, they're going to be fastball dominant. They're going to use that to set the table. It's just like you're saying, when does it get to a point where he's going to that too much? Are you not realizing trends of what team you're playing. Like the Blue Jays swing a lot of first pitch fastballs. So, are you not aware of that you need to maybe switch it up a tiny bit more this start? But, it's just been a couple starts. And I think for the most part, you look at this thing in a full season and you'll look back and there's a couple starts in the middle there that sure, he didn't have his greatest command of his secondary stuff. But, if it's next week or if it's his next start again, then I think we can definitely say that you're onto something here. But I just want to see Logan go out there and continue to have confidence in his pitches, and whether that be the fastball, well then just maybe mix in a changeup first, and then you can pound it with 3 straight fastballs or however you want to do it. But that's a good point. I think for the most part though, Kikuchi got back on track, who was also struggling a little bit, and then Marco's just been doing awesome. So even if Gilbert falls off a little bit, I think those guys who were struggling are starting to get it back. So see what happens.
I do. At the end of the day, I like the solidity of our current rotation, right? I do think Gilbert's going to come back, figure it out, so to speak. But Marco's heating up to, what we understand to be his normal self, which is well above average. Kikuchi's been doing just fine. Tyler Anderson, we have high hopes for. He's going to bring a much needed extra left-handed game plan into the rotation. I think while we're down in the wild card race, don't abandon all hope yet is my hot take.
You keep reminding everyone.
Never lose.
I don't think it's as doom and gloom as that, man. I think
I thought for the whole for the majority of the season, we've been talking about. I don't think we're a playoff team. I'm the one person that keeps coming back saying, "Hey, it's not over yet."
Hey, I know. Well, I still, if I had to bet on it, I would say that we're not going to make it. But I mean, it just goes to show you how much it can change in a week. I mean, we go to New York and just get our butts kicked, and we kind of see it slipping away from us. But look, we came back. We took 2 out of 3 from the Rangers. Took 2 out of 3 from the Blue Jays. Now we get the Rangers again. Hopefully we can play good against the bad teams, as we were talking about. We have. But I mean, I think we'll hang around. It's just like I think the A's and the Astros, one of those teams is getting a wild card spot, and then the Yankees they're playing really, really well right now. So, we have to somehow get past the Yankees, I think, or hopefully, or maybe the A's fall off, but I don't see that happening. So.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, let's get into picks to hit. Picks to hit.
I mean, common theme. I think the same man won again, and that man is Baseline Baron EPUB.
And the same man lost again. I'm just gonna start you guys off so you guys can bring me in to the very last part. The boys assigned me Jake Bowers, and Jake Bowers was non-existent for the week. So I hate this game, but I'll keep playing anyway.
No. You took one for the team.
Yeah.
Real quick, actually, before we dive into that, there was an update on Justice Sheffield today. He had his first rehab assignment outing. It went pretty bad. Yeah, an inning and a third, only 47 pitches, but he ended up giving up 3 runs. And I think 3 runs on 2 hits and 5 walks with 2 Ks. Rough outing for him. Rough outing. That was in Tacoma. And so
I don't think only saying 47 pitches is like when you went 1 1/3, you mean a whole bunch of pitches, 47 in an inning.
He went an inning and a third and had 47 pitches, then got taken out.
Jesus.
Yeah. He gave up 5 walks, so he just couldn't control the zone today. Couldn't dominate it as the M's try to do with every single aspect of their game, dominating the zone. So that's something I was reading on Twitter and I wanted to bring up, but because we were talking about, what happens with Justice and Justin when they come back. Are they going to be in the starting rotation, or could they both be utilized in the same start as a bullpen start? I don't know if we touched on that with Jason Churchill. We did a bullpen start with both of them going back to back in that same game, I think that would be kind of interesting. See how that plays out. But yeah, I just kind of want to throw that in there that he had his first rehab assignment today. Didn't go well.
Yeah, I mean, you would platoon them like that if you start to see this Gilbert thing become an issue, or if Kikuchi, who's used to pitching on 6 days like they do in Japan, if he kind of starts to regress again. But it seems like he's figured it out a little bit. I mean, in that 9-3 win, though, he only went it's easy to forget that he only went 4.1 innings pitched. Sadler comes in and goes 1 in a 2/3 inning and kind of saves that game for us. And then we tack on late. We go 4 in the 7th, 3 in the 8th. So it looks like a blowout win, which it ended up being. But I mean, real quick as well, I wanted to touch on Casey Sadler because this guy has been dominant for us. He helps get the win in that game. On the year, 21.1 innings pitched, 1.27 ERA, and a 1.03 WHIP. And the role that they're playing him in is that Chargot role or Chargois or however you want to say it.
Chargois.
Who's gone now. But he's been our new Chargois. And then also Joe Smith, who we got from the Astros, has been a kind of a forgotten part of that deal. But he came over with a 7.48 ERA, and now he's got it down to 5.72 because over his last 6 and 2/3 inning, he has 0 runs. Hasn't given up a run for the Mariners. So, and he's got that funky right sidearm delivery, which I think if he can continue this, he's a 6th, 7th inning arm piece for us. That's really nice to have. That you need to glue any game together.
Before today, Joe Smith, he had retired 15 of the 16 batters he had faced while with Seattle. So that's just an impressive stat right there. He only gave up a hit today, had 2 more strikeouts, but Joe Smith is doing well. I mean, that wily veteran, he's doing his thing. And apparently the clubhouse, Kelnick was on 710 earlier this week talking with Danny and Gallant. And he was saying that right after the Graven trade, they were asking him about that. And he's like, yeah, but we really embrace Toro and Joe Smith. And Joe came in and immediately had this presence about him, how he was a leader, how he was going to show, the experience that he had and, try and teach that or get that passed along to the younger guys. And so those behind the scenes things that we can't really see on a day-to-day basis, it's nice to hear that Joe Smith is bringing that. But yeah, I like what he's bringing. He's doing a solid job with them so far.
And do we kind of take a preview of next week as well? I mean, I know we talked about the Rangers. We gotta go down to Arlington and see them. But then I think we have 3 against the Astros in Houston, and then we got 2 against the A's. Just a weird 2-game series. Mm-hmm. But kind of to throw it to you guys. Obviously, I think you guys are going to say we need to sweep the Rangers, but would you just take 2 against the Rangers, or are you getting greedy?
Win the series, focus on that, win the first game of the series, which Service is absolutely huge on. He'll do almost anything to win that first game of the series. I will take 2 out of 3. We, at this point in the season, need a sweep if we want to continue staying alive, because I mean, every other team in the race right now is seemingly just winning every day. And so we need to match that with Houston. Gotta hope for 2 out of 3, but we'll see what happens there.
Well, I didn't get to see. Are we gonna face Scherzer, or do we miss him, or did we figure that out? Because I mean, if you can get lucky and not see Max Scherzer, that's pretty huge. I mean, I'd rather face their young guy or Kitty or whatever his name.
I'm sorry, Max Scherzer. Am I going crazy, or is he? He's on the Dodgers.
Max Scherzer's on the Dodgers there.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
We'll edit that out.
No, hell no.
No need.
Hell no.
No need.
Oh, okay, my bad. I forgot. But he was supposed to get traded to the Astros.
Where have you been?
Sorry, man.
Where have you been?
He was supposed to get traded to the Astros, and then the Dodgers came in.
Look, I think we need to win the first games of each series. And yeah, I think we need to sweep them, right? Yeah. Like that'd be really, really nice, but we got to win these first games.
Yeah, and just based off of our previous series with the with the Rangers, you don't know what can happen. And as long as we can get, I mean, the first two guys that we're facing, well, the second guy we're facing is going to be Fultonevich, who we have been absolutely destroying. We faced him. This will be the 6th time, and we've been destroying him. JP Crawford has 6 home runs this year. 3 of those are off of that guy.
I love the way Fultonevich just looks like he hates doing his job.
He hates.
Yeah, you were talking about that.
Yeah. No, I swear to God, when one thing goes wrong, I could be wrong, even when it's just another day at work. The way he looks, like his facial expressions on the mound, it is comical. He rolls his eyes. He,
deep breaths,
deep breaths and sighs and lollygags back to the mat. Like, it looks like he absolutely hates what he's doing.
You know what I will say though. And he does it in a different way than Flexen does. But some people, when they're like golfers as well, they're just so locked in and focused, and it almost comes off as like pissed off. Flexen looks like he's pissed off on the mound, but he does it, has a little bit of a tweak to it where it doesn't look like he's as miserable as Fultonevich is. I will say though that, yeah, Fultonevich, it's like he gives up a single and it's just like, man, doom and gloom. He's like we need to find a good nickname for him because he looks like Syndergaard, but you could make like a play off of it. Like
he's like a freaking Eeyore.
Like
something.
The poor man's Syndergaard or something a little bit better.
Anyway, we're going to kick his ass. So it's going to be great. Let's go to pick to hit.
But Evan, with that being said, my guy, number 1 pick, I think I got number 2 this week. I had 9 points with Toro.
I had 14, boys.
I got 3rd then. All right. Evan, do you know how many points you had?
I do not.
I might have won this week, guys. When you said that, I was like, I don't know, man.
Who'd you have this week?
Kyle Seager, baby.
Yeah, I had Kelenic. I think Kelenic just had a bunch of walks. He didn't really do too much. So I think, did Seager go a yard a few times?
Bro. Hold on. 10, 16, 17, 18. He had 17 points. Kelenic had 17.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
Yep. So Kelenic wins. Kelenic wins. Wife's in 2nd. I'm in 3rd. Schwab's with Jake Bowers. You can take a lap.
Okay. Well, I think this week I'm gonna go with Mitch Haniger. I'm gonna go with off the fact that the Mariners are going to Texas, the ball's gonna be flying out of the yard. I think Texas is the worst team. I know they've had their issues, but I think if there were any time for Mitch to kind of break out of a slump, I think it would be right here. So I'm gonna go with him this week.
Leifel?
Yeah, I think Ty France has just been lighting the world on fire. So, I mean, I'm going to take him for the 3rd time this year. I probably would have taken Seager this week, but I already had him last week. So, I can't do that. And I think, yeah, you're probably going to take him. But Ty France, baby.
For the listeners and my colleagues on Monday Mojo, I officially apologize for Ty France. He's arguably our best player on the team.
And if you guys haven't been paying attention, Max was talking some smack about Ty France.
I just was impatient because I wanted him to be some, do some big things.
To be fair, he was doing fine when you said that, but ever since you said it, he's lit the world on fire. So it wasn't like you were, watching this guy rake and you're like, he sucks. It's just like he'd been a little bit quiet, hadn't hit a home run in a long time, and you like to see those bombs. So.
And as Zweifel said it, I am definitely going with Seager because we are playing both these series are in Texas, and it doesn't matter if it's in Houston, doesn't matter if it's in Arlington. Kyle Seager does what Kyle Seager does, and he absolutely rakes. And so I'm excited to see what he can do. I think he has the most home runs other than T-Mobile Park. The most places he's hit home runs are both of those stadiums. Houston has number 1 and Arlington is number 2. So expect big things from Mr. Kyle Seager.
That leaves last but definitely least my pick. Max Schwabe's going with the Abraham Toro. I think Abraham's gonna.
We need Toro.
What?
We need Toro to do well, man.
Oh, I see what you. Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
Hey, Taylor Trammell, who's not even on the team.
Yeah, you just want to silence me, okay? All right, this is the dawn of a new era. Max Schwabe's going to win these pick to hicks moving forward. It's going to be Abraham Toro this week. He's going to go back to a state that he's very, very familiar with. And I think he's going to bring it to his old team. Abraham Toro for the win.
I actually like the pick.
I do like that pick, especially with it being against his old team.
Man, Kelnick's been lighting it up too, though. I'm kind of surprised he wasn't picked.
Dude, that opposite field home run he had when we went back to back, Terrence hit that
crazy.
first one, and then Kelnick hit that opposite field one. That was so good to see. The ball wasn't even in the strike zone. It was a fastball, middle and away, and he doesn't try to pull it, doesn't roll over it. He just puts the barrel to it, and that thing.
He's got better vision. Yeah,
oh, it's
got way better
good.
vision.
It's looking good. His confidence is growing, and he's not striking out. He went 26 plate appearances in a row without striking out.
That's incredible.
Like that on that interview we were talking about with Danny and Gallant, he was actually talking about how in this game, talking about MLB, obviously, that when you try to do too much, you get poor results, and when you think little, big things happen. So he's thinking little. He's not trying to do too much. He's taking his walks. He's not striking out, like he said. And like that pitch you're talking about there, he wasn't looking to do anything with that pitch. It was just a fastball, and he barreled it up, and there it goes. So hope to see more of that. And I think he has figured it out. And Mariners Facebook's starting to figure it out too.
Dude, I loved what Jason was saying about just the people on Twitter and on social media that just say absolute lies and just stupid things. He's like, somebody's got to call these guys out, and I'm okay with being that guy. I'm not here to. He goes. This ain't show friends. This is showbiz, baby. And I was like, that is a line of the century right there, my guy.
I think I almost got this in there. I wanted to, but the conversation kept going on. But I think he took that from my favorite movie, Jerry Maguire. So,
did they say it's not show friends, it's showbiz?
Yeah, when his wife or his girl, the girl that he's engaged to is she goes, it's like you said, Jerry, it's not show friends, it's show business.
he may have been doing that. I mean, that's a phenomenal movie too.
Well, let's move forward this week with the mindset of Jerry Maguire. We're coming at anything else, guys, before we sign off.
Yeah, no, I think we covered it all. I mean, what are we? I think we're sitting 5.5 back of the wild card right now, if I'm not mistaken. 5.5 back. We got ground to cover. Got to keep our eyes tight on the Yankees, tight on the Blue Jays, and both Oakland and Boston. They are neck and neck right now for the 1 and 2 wild card spots. They got them both, but after that, it's us, the Yanks, and the Blue Jays really fighting for that last spot. So. It's going to be a tight race the rest of the year. Every game matters, and we got to make sure we do what we can do. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, thanks again for listening. I'm Max Schwabe. We've got Chris Weifel, we've got Chris Soba, and Evan Barron. Catch us again next week, but have a solid week and go Mariners.